She's a lecturer, performer, activist, and the author of I Am Wealth, the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. Her name is Kai Love, and she's next on Open Door Cleveland with Vince Robinson.
I'm Sophie, absolutely.
My name is Ken Hawkins Jr.
I'm Love Lachey XO.
This is Darnell Carter, the family man.
This is Vanessa Whiting.
This is Erica Abrams.
This is Reggie Hyman.
Yo, what it do is your girl DJ Coco Z, and you rocking out to WOVU 95.9 FM.
We're back on Open Door with Kai Love, artist, author, lecturer, performer, and activist. And I added one intentionally because you are an artist. But welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I have to be transparent as I try to do all the time and let the audience know that I have known this young lady for quite some time, and I've just watched her grow from being the 17-year-old person who was working at Radio Shack downtown on Euclid Avenue.
Oh my God.
In the days that I would hang out with AJ Jamal and Steve Harvey at the old arcade, and we would encounter her youthful, vibrant energy. And to her credit, she still has that youthful, vibrant energy. So, Kai Love.
Hey.
She is the author of a book called I Am Wealth. And that was my primary reason for inviting her to do the show. And I'm sure she wants to tell you about the book. So let's talk about the book, and then we can talk about your life, and then we'll come back to the book. How about that?
That's fine. Whatever you like.
Okay. So what was the genesis and the reason that you came forth with I Am Wealth?
That is an awesome question. It's actually titled I Am Wealth, the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. And I had come back to Cleveland a couple months ago, returning from Las Vegas, and I had gone there to perform and sing, and just to find that what I was looking for really wasn't there. To be honest, we're going to be transparent, and since I'm a life coach, I definitely am going to be that. And I came back home, not necessarily thinking I was going to stay, but in between the process of buying another car and them taking a long time to get my title to me, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do while I'm here? I don't know. And it came to me one morning to write about what I wanted. And I've always wanted to amass a certain level of not just money, because as I state in my book, money is made, but wealth is created, but a certain amount of wealth in order to do my activism work and the work with young people that I love to do. So for me, wealth is with a purpose. It's not just for the sake of having. And so as I was thinking about, it just came to me one morning. It said, write about what it is you want. You want to create something, so create it. And the book came to me, even the name, everything just hit me like a lightning bolt. And that's why I wrote it. And then being a person who meditates heavily and practices yoga and Tai Chi and a few other things, I just felt it necessarily to kind of chronicle my life, what I believe and what I do in my ability to create what I want.
Okay, so let's talk about your life since you brought it up. You have been in Cleveland for most of your life, but you've, as you just indicated, you lived in Las Vegas for a while. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have a history as a singer and an actress. So those things have taken you to other places. Could you talk about your life as a performing artist?
Why, sure. That sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago, and then other times it feels like it's just something that I will never get away from, nor do I care to. I spent pretty much my teenage years, my 20s, my 30s, and I'm still somewhere around in that region. Mm-hmm. But, right. Singing and performing and wanting to be a star, you know, like all of us. But even when I was pursuing music, I wasn't pursuing it for the same reasons that people pursued it. I just loved to do it. And whether I became famous at it or not, it didn't matter. I just wanted to sing. And shortly into really making some noise in New York, in the late 90s, early 2000, I just came to see that the business of music was changing even then. And I got some spiritual insights about why I didn't want to be in it any longer. And then kids became my whole passion. So the arts gave me the confidence. Well, my mom and my grandma gave me confidence, but that self-love. But the arts gave me freedom of expression and the confidence to be good at something. And so I continued to do that, and I began to write poetry and just express myself in various ways. And so music, singing, acting, writing, dancing, producing, I just started doing every facet of it because I just kind of found out that I could naturally. And it almost was like I just moved into it seamlessly. It just was starting to happen. Oh, I can do that. I can do that. And as I began to do that, I gained confidence to do other things, start my business, which is a motivational speaking and leadership development firm. And then just work for myself and pretty much express through the arts and taught young people to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Talk about some of the things that you did as a performer.
Wow. Let's see. As a performer, my favorite place still, I suppose, would be Kiramu because it's where I got my start. And I started out when you had the most amazing people like the Mike Malones and the Margaret Ford Taylors and the Bill Cobbs and people who were older artists who were training the best of the best and who themselves were the best of the best and taught me to work really, really hard at my craft. And so that start came at Kiramu, and then I did several plays there. I was in acting and dance there under some, Reggie Kelly was my dance teacher, coach, friend, and performance buddy, and still today is that same thing for me. And then I went on, I made it to Broadway. I did a couple of plays. Actually, I auditioned my first time to Broadway to New York. I was auditioning for a play that I did here at the Cleveland Playhouse called Abyssinia, which was like my first big thing. And I auditioned, but I had to go to New York. I got the audition here, and my second part was to go to New York on Broadway, which was major, to be a young girl and to, I think I was 19. I was very young, and to have that experience was amazing. Then I went on, I actually got on The Lion King. I auditioned for that. And, I got the show. The funny thing about it was I actually never got a chance to perform the show. I always tell people I'm a Broadway performer that never performed on Broadway. But that's only because I started working on a television show while I was in New York. And but I made it there. So my agent used to say, so you still put that because you actually were in the show. So I've done every facet of it, I guess, that you can imagine: theater, film. I did a Cleveland International Film Festival, 2011. Also, I used to be on Channel 19 and 43. So as a TV personality for about 3 years here. So I've done a lot of stuff. And when I look back over my life, sometimes I never think about those things. It was what I did at that time. It was what I loved, but it certainly built my character and my confidence and my, I would say, transparency today, because the arts has a way of doing that. I mean, if you're really artistic and you are truly, an art, you understand the transformative powers of art.
Mm-hmm. The New York experience is an unusual experience for many because there are a lot of folks who are involved in the arts in this city who have the mindset that you really haven't made it until you make it to the big stage, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, or whatever the case may be. I'm just curious about what your experience was like while you were there, going from Cowtown, Cleveland, to the big sprawling metropolis, New York City. Well,
New York is one of my favorite places still today. In fact, I was there for 99 New Year's Eve. I think I spent 2014 New Year's Eve there, bringing in the new year there. For me, of course, when I was coming up, Broadway was like the thing that you were going for. But what I did learn about, I've forgotten. I've done national tours too. I forgot. There's so much that I've done. When I think about my life, sometimes I have to remember it in pieces and parts because, you just don't think about those things, especially as you move into another phase of your life and you're actually moving in the way that spiritually you're supposed to move and grow. Those other things kind of get left because they were the things that help you get to where you are today. So I do forget about things, but I did a national tour with the Clark sisters and Akusa Busia, who was the original Nettie from The Color Purple, which, interestingly enough, I was Suge Avery in The Color Purple at Kiramu in 2013, I think it was, the last time before I moved to Las Vegas. But to answer your question, because there is so much in everybody's life, we all go through and grow through. New York was definitely the not only pivotal moment, but it was also the epitome, for all singers and actresses to make it in New York, because the song, if I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. And I will tell you this, being from Cleveland and being from the old Karamu, I can't talk about the Karamu of today because I don't know what they're doing over there right now, and I can't support or not support. I don't know. But the Karamu that I knew coming up, we had amazing talent, amazing teachers, and they made you work for it. And when you get to New York, you are the best of the best. Cleveland always reigns supreme. People still are there doing well, and we're able to live anywhere in the world. And I do attribute that to Karamu and Mike Malone's and the Margaret Ford Taylors, because they made us really amazing talents. We're fierce, as they used to say back in the day, and they made us that. And being in New York, it's like this big, exciting emancipation, and at the same time, it's there's just an amalgamation of feelings, because you're excited and you're thriving in a way that you don't thrive here because you have to. And you have all this other talent and energy coming for you and around you. So it makes you work harder. You're more serious and about it. And then the city just vibrates a lot faster than here. So it's super, super charged. And it's just exciting. It's like LA. It's an amazing place to be. You just can't lose sight of why you're there. And a lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm. How do you survive in a place where the cost of living is so high, and you can't drive or have a car because it takes so much to park it and all that? Oh
yeah, parking is horrible. I mean, even back in the day, it was $55, to park in a spot. Basically, if you're there for a couple of days, it's just unbelievable. All of that. The cost of living is very high. What most people did, most artists did, I didn't have to do. I was very fortunate knowing people there, and had some people that were very, very successful in life, period. So I lived okay. But most people grouped together and lived, still today, they live, like they do in Las Vegas, like they do all in LA. West Coast is really big, shared spaces. So you did a lot of shared spaces, and you do a lot of walking. The auditions a lot of times were in Soho and in Manhattan. And so wherever you lived, you get on the L. What do you call it? Well, they call it the L there, but we call it here the Rapid. Mm-hmm. And you get on the Rapid and you go. You just take a bus. That's the big thing in New York. Nobody really drives. And I drove because I would drive back and forth home, and I wanted my car. So, but yeah, when I was there, all the auditions are pretty much in the same area. You go to Soho, you shop, but there's also a lot of spots for auditions. You go to New York and Manhattan, everything is just in the same area. So you were basically getting on that train and walking it. You're humping it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which is cool because you got everybody else doing the same thing.
Okay. So it was quite an experience, to say the least.
To say the least.
Okay. You're listening to Open Door Cleveland. I'm Vince Robinson, and we are talking with Kai Love. She is the author of I Am Wealth, the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. And you read this book, it can change your life. I will just put it that way. It has an interesting feel to it. You have chapterizations in it.
Yes.
We're going to talk a little bit more about your career as a performer and some of the things that you've done in Cleveland before we dig into I Am Wealth. And we're going to do that right after we come back from this break. We'll be right back.
I count, you count, your grandparents count, newborns count, and everyone you've seen today counts. If you've lived in the country only a few weeks or for your entire life, you count. If you live alone, with family, with friends, or with people you don't know all that well, you all count. Everyone in Cleveland counts. And everyone living in your household on April 1st needs to get counted as part of the 2020 census. An accurate count informs how billions of dollars in federal funding gets distributed annually for health clinics, after-school activities, road repairs, and hundreds of other programs. Shape your future. Start here. Visit 2020census.gov.
Welcome back to Open Door Cleveland. I'm Vince Robinson, and I am visiting with Kai Love, author of I Am Wealth, the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. Before we took our break, we were talking about her life in New York, what it was like to navigate that landscape and some of the advantages that she had because she had those connections and she was able to keep her car, but she took advantage of that and she moved forward. So eventually you come back to Cleveland after being in New York. Then what?
Come back to Cleveland. You're working like everybody else. You get married. You know, which I did. You fall in love. You live that life as long as it works. You're relatively happy, but at the same time, you know, marriage is wonderful. And but when you're young, if you're focused on your career, sometimes you can miss some of the parts that are important to you later. And fortunately, I had a very supportive person at that time in my life who was also an actor. And we're kind of moving along the same journey. But so that journey was amazing, you know, and loving and wonderful because he was that person for me. And it was very blessed time. I spent a lot of time growing spiritually, learning different things. But I also birthed my business after that period of marriage to just grow in every way because, like I said, the arts had made me very strong and secure and confident. And so was my family, my mother, my grandmother, my uncles, my aunts, everybody that was very supportive. My stepdad, who passed away when I was young, but very loving stepdad. And I had things that today our children don't have. Like you said yourself, I met you and Steve Harvey and AJ Jamal at a very, again, pivotal time in my life as a young woman. I'm 17 and I'm meeting these three, and I say two because mainly it was you and, well, no, it's all three of you actually. Mm-hmm. But I'm meeting these three men who are respectful and kings and admiring me at the same time, but also encouraging me to stay respectful and to stay a lady and treating me as such. So I had so many awesome people and souls that entered my life, and it made such a difference in who I am as a woman today. So when I was growing in that period, when you knew me as a child, as I was becoming a young woman, all of that was kind of when I decided to start my own business, it was all a part of that awareness because when you have all these different energies around you and people and they're all pulling for you, it makes it hard to fail. And for me, I spend most of my journey, like I said, and I think on the back of my book, my spiritual life is my real life. And I spent most of my life seeking the higher things and being very misunderstood because of that. You know, when you don't think like other people and you're not motivated by the things that motivate them, which is money and what you look like on the outside, but yet you're in that business and you look like that business because you have to do the hair, the nails, the makeup, and the beauty thing. It's an interesting way to have to navigate your life through those kinds of things because for me, I was always searching for the higher consciousness, for the better way of life from an internal perspective. So, did I answer your question?
Well, I think what I'm hearing and I guess what my thought process is leading me into was the fact that you experienced a paradigm shift in terms of your intention when you came back. So you went from being the person who was pursuing the dreams of yes. Broadway and acting and yes. all of that. And then you're looking into yourself and trying to figure out your purpose, which is what happens when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
You made a paradigm shift
yeah.
and then you started to focus on young people.
Yes.
So talk about that transition and what you did in terms of manifesting that aspect of your personality in your life.
You know, what's interesting is that it felt like one and the same. And again, I can honestly say, and it's really funny that we're having this type of interview, and I guess it would be this type of interview with you, Vince, knowing me as you have and for the length of time that you have. And when I say that, I mean in the best way, because mm-hmm. for me, this is very, it feels very personal. It's very easy, but it also is very reflective. And I'm never reflective in this way because I'm a now person. I was telling a friend of mine today, I said, well, I don't live in the past, so you're asking me about things that I don't remember. And I don't remember them because I've chosen to forget. And that's not that they were all bad. They were necessary, whatever it was, good, bad, or whatever. And I live now. So I'm enjoying just the reflection. But to answer your question, it was, again, a very seamless move for me because I'm always true to myself. And when you're true to yourself, it's not like it's a shift, but it's not really a change. It seems like a change to other people watching, but really inside of you, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, on every level, it's more of a shift. It's like I'm just changing gears and not changing myself. I'm stepping into my true self more and more every day. So when I was a kid, I always loved children, and I hadn't thought about it, but looking back over my life, when I was 18 and 19, somewhere in that region, I used to speak to youth on behalf of Judge Leotis Harris, who's no longer here. And I found out he passed away while I was in Las Vegas, so I didn't get a chance to pay my respects to him. But I remember I was very young myself, and I think he was impressed with the fact that because I was so young, but I cared about young people that were no more than 2 or 3 years younger than me, and he would let me talk to them. So unbeknownst to me, Vince, that was something that was setting the stage for the work I would do into my future. And so I was always doing this work, you see. I mean, the universe is always lining you up, whether you know it or not. From the very beginning, you are who you actually are. But we forget it because of the narrative that we begin to believe from our family and the social engineering and social steering, and then the pathologies that are created due to our behaviors based upon those artificial, implementation of something, of someone else's story into our subconscious. And we don't know. And then we begin to wake up as we go. Those of us who choose to start to wake up, and then you realize, hey, something's not right. Something's not true. And so as we're shifting, or as I was shifting into that, I thought about it. I was always working with young people. It wasn't a time that I wasn't. And, so when I let the industry idea of being a big famous singer go, it had more to do with what I was seeing spiritually, and what I was feeling about this business wasn't going to be something that I would be willing to do to have it.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. Because, a lot of people don't really fully understand what it takes to exist on that level. Ooh. And you could break it down to as simple as you sell your soul to the devil.
Pretty much.
You do things that compromise your integrity, they compromise your values, they compromise your morality, all because you want to see your name up in lights. Yeah. And it goes both ways. It's male and female too. So you want to talk about that just briefly?
Sure. I think one of the main things that people have to understand is that everything is choice. Everything is choice. And what you choose determines the quality of your outcome, which determines the quality of your life. And if you don't trust and love yourself enough to know that sometimes you have to go the distance and do it the hard way or the long way, but at the end of the day, you'll be happier and you'll be more at peace. You'll have true contentment and joy that will last forever, instead of something temporary and temporal, like, oh, I'm successful now. And in this industry, in the industry today, they've gone to not so really talented people because they could control and dominate their mind due to the need and the greed. And I say the need first because most of the young people and people who are in this industry today come from extreme poverty. And they want it so much that this industry leaders, producers, executives take advantage of their ignorance and their desperation. And it's not that it's new. It's just that it has overtaken the industry, where once talent did have something to do with why you made it. Now it has nothing to do. It has to do with what you're willing to do. Mm-hmm. And it certainly is a filthy industry, and a lot of people won't just call it like it is. But the truth of the matter is that we're in a time where we must call it like it is, because our children are suffering greatly because we didn't. Or those, I can't say we, because I've always spoken the truth about it, but for those people that had power, I've never had power in the industry, but they continue to have the privilege of whatever being in that powerful position gave them and provided for them. And then other people who stand around, like you look at the R. Kellys and stuff like that. That's not a joke. This is real. You know, a lot of the artists that have made it, like I said, it's no wonder that they started getting strippers as rappers. Why? You're already in an industry where you are selling yourself in a sense, you know, you're already in the adult entertainment industry. So what's sleeping with one more producer or his crew or an executive if they have to send you up there to do whatever is required for you to get a deal and to do whatever? I mean, it's just really sick. Mm-hmm. And we as a people have to take responsibility for our inadequacy in the way that we have allowed someone to say, hey, you know what, just to have something, I'll do whatever it takes. How about building yourself internally? How about finding out who you are and then building from that perspective? Yeah, you may not have all of it at the same time, but you'll get there, I promise.
Yes. And I think it's relevant because a lot of people think, you know, how can I get rich? How can I become wealthy? And they see show business as the way to do that. But they go into it not fully understanding what's involved. So you want to get signed to a label. That's your, you know, your chief, goal in life is to get signed by some record label. And you don't know that when you put your name on that contract, basically what you're doing is you're giving up your rights and you're leading yourself into a road of exploitation because, you know, they're giving you this money. But it's advance money.
That's right.
And it pays a whole lot of people. That's and right. It doesn't pay you because when it's all said and done, everybody else got the money but you.
The artist formerly known as Prince was telling everybody that back in the 90s, long, long time ago. But so many people, again, out of need and greed. And I say it just that way because what happens is once we get something that we've never had, there's this greed for it. There's this hunger for it. And now that you've done it, now that you have compromised yourself to that level, there's so much internal turmoil that if you are not prepared to deal with life on those terms, will cost you drugs, alcohol, mental, you will literally go crazy, emotional health issues. So there's a lot, there's a lot to this game, and we have to realize that it is a game. And I think that because of the paradigm shift, and I always talk about the fifth dimensional ascension time that we're in, people are hip to it and are growing from it, but there's still a lot of, as a result, there's a lot of harm that's been done to our community in particular, because there's so many, breaches in our community that everything hurts us, everything. And from an educational, from underpaid to undereducated to imprisoned to all of the underdog things that anybody could have experienced. We have experienced them all. And then you put, this music industry that through music and through sound, because you're a sound man as well, solfeggio sound or frequencies and vibration, which I do talk about a little bit in the book, the power of that in the subconscious. And so you put certain binaural beats or just certain beats on top of something, and then you put words into that now fuse into the subconscious and go into your theta state, and you actually become a savage. Classy, moody, ratchet.
Okay. You just said a mouthful of a lot of things, and I think we're going to have to break those things down for folks who don't understand, because there's a lot of folks who never heard of solfeggio frequencies or binary or whatever. So we want to explore those things and talk about them in a little bit more depth. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break. This is Vince Robinson. You're listening to Open Door Cleveland, and I'm talking with Kai Love. We'll be right back.
WOVU 95.9 FM. Find us on Facebook. Like our page. Leave us a comment. We are WOVU 95.9, streaming live on WOVU.org.
When you're in my car, we're listening to WOVU 95.9 FM.
Welcome back to Open Door Cleveland. Vince Robinson here with Kai Love. She is the author of I Am Wealth, the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. And when we took our break, we were talking about certain things that are done within recording technology to affect human behavior. So I didn't want to go too far down that rabbit hole in light of the fact that we didn't have that much time. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Could you talk about those frequencies as you were explaining them?
Well, so I kind of write about this in the book, and we talk about vibration and frequency. And so the vibration is the energy that you move and that you feel and that moves and creates and manifests. The frequency is kind of like a dial that you change, like on your radio dial. So when you are listening to certain sounds and music and lyrics put together, they are shifting your vibration by changing the frequency. And so let's look at the frequency in terms of negative and positive. So if you're in a high frequency, then you're on a positive frequency. Then you're going to be listening to, say, 432 hertz music or 528. You're going to be listening to solfeggio sounds, the ancient sounds that balance and harmonize you with nature and power higher universal energies. But if you're in the lower frequencies like that, you know, a lot of the rap that we hear and a lot of the trap music and things like that, it's slowing down, but it's what's going inside of the down, and it's a sound that when they're putting these words in there with that, it goes into your subconscious, which now programs you subliminally. And so it's like, you know, when I meet people, and it's really funny because people meet me and they think that I am a person that's, what would the word be? High maintenance. I've heard that before, which is the craziest thing because Vince will tell you, I don't wear makeup. I don't even wear nails. You know, I might wear some weave, but that's about it. But my hair is natural, be very clear. But that's just because of what I do. So sometimes you have to look that part and you do what you do. And that's not separate from me either. You know, that's part of my reality and I'm okay with that. But my point in saying that is that people don't understand that we're all different layers and dimensions. We're more than what you see. So we can kind of liken ourselves to each person on the levels that you exist in and on. And each one of those levels are affected vibrationally through something, somehow, some way. So whether you say love affects you deeply, or if food affects you deeply, or, you know, anything material affects you deeply, that's all energy that's actually moving and vibrating in you and around you. And so sound is one of the most powerful, like light, it's one of the most powerful and most effective ways to infuse not only thoughts, but feelings in you. It's through sound. And then when you add words, that's programming. So it's really important that we get out of the physical body, the 2D, 3-dimensional way of thinking about what you see physically. Because when you are able to do that, you'll be able to capture or hear the programming, and you'll be able to hear those frequencies that are not positive, that are lower. And it's okay, like if I listen to Savage, you know why? Because I'm built already on the inside and I know where to place it. It's okay if adults listen to it, but our children, they don't know where to place this stuff. And when we're not there in their lives, giving them making sure that their basic needs are met. And that's a large part of mental health issues. That's a large part of how our children learn or feel about themselves, self-esteem, all kinds of behavioral issues. If we're not there to charter them through that and help them get through that course, obstacle courses of life, then when they hear that music, when they hear those words, when that sound goes in them, it goes through them and it then becomes them.
Yes. I really want to talk about young folk because I always try to put things in a cultural perspective, or within a cultural perspective, and just knowing what I know about African music and African dance. You know, there's so much there, you know, and sometimes when we witness those performances, we don't really know what the context is. We don't know the meaning of the movements. We don't know the meaning of the words. We don't know the meaning of the drum beats. but whether we know them or not, they have an impact on us.
I feel it.
And it's kind of the same way with the counterculture that we're getting, because what the recording industry does is it has an agenda and it feeds that agenda, just as you just explained. And we have to be able to make that shift from being so entrenched in something that is detrimental to something that is beneficial for us.
Yes.
You know, you were talking earlier, and I was thinking in terms of epigenetics, and I know the impact that your grandmother had on your life. And I know definitively that she shows up in you, and that part of the reason that you do all the things that you do is because of your connection to her, and she's living through you. That's and right. She is empowering you to do the things that you are doing now. So let's talk about the cultural context and the importance of our connection with and our acknowledgement of the ancestors.
Wow, that's my favorite subject. Many years ago, somehow, I don't remember how, but it became very clear and apparent to me that one of the main reasons that African people, brown people in America, also known as black, and please don't use the term minority, it's very offensive, but us brown people have suffered and not been able to rise above our circumstances because, not because of the person outside of us that's a little bit lighter than us that we want to blame for everything, though we know their responsibility. We certainly know their responsibility, and now the world knows their responsibility. But the part that we do play is that we operated in fear and we forgot. We got to know that that's our fault. We operated in fear and we believed somebody else's narrative because of that fear. And then we continue to believe and tell that story to our children, generation after generation after generation. And let me just talk about that first, fear. When I was my last year at teaching at one of the schools here in Cleveland before I left in 2014, I remember asking one of my students 6 years ago, I said, you know, where'd you come from? I'm sorry, I asked 7 students, and every single one of them told me slavery. It's 2014. And our children don't know that they either came from Africa or were already indigenous Indians here. I couldn't believe it. And yet I could, because I came from the same culture, teaching Western dominant culture lies that they did. And so I could believe it. I had to believe it, but it saddened me just the same. And the second part of that fear is that we forgot. And the forgot is that we forgot to honor our ancestors. And had we honored them all along, none of this would have happened. If I can tell you the power of our ancestors and the power of how they protected me, there were times I would be at home in Las Vegas and I'd be driving on the highway and I don't know anything about cars. And my dad, who interestingly enough, 16 years ago was actually killed in a car accident, on the highway. He would always tell me about that car. I mean, if it needed oil, his birthday would show up, some number that I knew was him speaking to me, or I would feel his presence, or I would smell him. And I'd be like, Dad, you're around. And then I go out to the car and it'd be tick, 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 ticking. I'm like, oh, it needs oil, right? And then there were times when I'm like, what's wrong with it? And I look at the clock and it was my dad's birthday. I'm like, oh, and I go and I'd stop and the tire was extremely low. At one point, it was so bizarre. And this is when I even gained more power and honor from my ancestors. I couldn't believe it, because when I tell you they protected me out there, I can't even begin to express not only the joy, the depth, but the completeness and the totality of being fully protected in an environment where you know no one, and to know that no one can touch you at the same time. It was it was amazing. I mean, I can't even tell you, it was amazing. And so when we honor our ancestors, we're not only honoring the best inside of ourselves, we are asking that angelic realm of hosts of ancestors to protect us and cover us and then lead us and guide us. And you tell me, imagine had we done that all along. Imagine had we not abandoned that one thing. Man, the skies would have it would have set them ablaze a long time ago, but we forgot. So I just, to all who are within the, earshot and listening to this broadcast right now, or listening when you do, please create an ancestral table, an ancestral shrine. And it's just pictures of those who've gone on before you that you are directly connected to and that you know. if you have unforgiveness in your heart for any of them, forgive them. Forgive them, because they now see in whole what they once saw in parts, or what we still see in parts. And so none of us are perfect. We're all on this journey doing the best that we can. But when we move and transition into spirit form, one of the things that our ancestors want to do, they want to help us because we are their legacy and they're ours. So get your ancestral shrine. Now it's what I call it's what it is. And usually it's best to be put in the basement so that the energy can flow from the bottom all the way up through the house. But you can put it in your living room or any way that feels comfortable in your home. And it's just a table. You put their pictures up. You put fresh water up. That's water and spirit, just to reflect on that. You light a candle. The candle is just that their love is always burning for us and with us and ours for them. I like to put fresh flowers up, and I love fresh flowers as my offering in remembrance to them. It is not so much as religious as it is spiritual. It's something every household has to have. When I was initiated Buddhist many years ago, they had, I think it was in September, I guess I was Buddhist with the Shaolin Buddhist, and I think it was in September, they had an ancestral time. Yes, it was September. And also when I practiced meditation with Burmese monks in Las Vegas, I did this every Wednesday and Saturday morning at 5 a.m. I'd go meditate for an hour. They would always, there was a part of the week where they honored their ancestors. And these were the Burmese monks. And so for us as a people in the Eastern cultures are still practicing the things that kept them whole, which is why they're still together and intact. Even when they come here, they can go back to their country. But what we have to know is that most of us are from here. We are Indians. We are indigenous people, and we have as much right to this country. And those of us that are from Africa that have as much right from this country because we built it, our blood, sweat, and tears. And so our ancestors are here as well. So we have to honor them so they protect us, can begin to protect us in a greater way in this land, because they've been working overtime for us, you guys, and you know it, because for what we've been through as a people, there's no reason any of us should even still be here.
Mm-hmm. I want you to explain that a little bit further, because we have our Christian brothers and sisters who have probably been pushed away from any kind of ancestor acknowledgement, or, some call it ancestor worship, even though we all know that we are our ancestors. I mean, right. The epigenetics that we just referred to are living proof of that.
Absolutely.
I posted a picture of my father on Facebook, weeks ago, and people kept telling me, oh, you look just like him. You look just like him. And I'm saying to them, I am him. He is
Absolutely.
Me. We're the same.
And why would you want to forget?
And why would I want to forget? So, when I honor my father, Robert J. Robinson Sr., I also say his name. We must say their name so that we keep them in our remembrance, and they continue to exist because we speak their names. Yes.
And so, say that what you said.
Well,
what was your question?
The question is just to assure our Christian brothers
okay,
and
so
sisters.
Very good. I explained this way as a lecturer. I'm always having to explain things, and I love to do that because that's my gift, calling, and anointing. So to my Christian brothers and sisters, which I was raised that way as well. And then I grew and transformed and changed and grew. But I always say to them, and this is so true, and I think you can understand it. When we say this during remembrance of me, that's the same thing. When it tells us to do communion for Jesus, it's the same thing, who is also an ancestor, because he lived and he died in the way that we understand life and death. He physically walked the earth, and then he no longer walks the earth in the physical realm. And so now he is an ancestor. And I think that people need to understand it's just saying that you transition from physical life to spiritual form. And in that sense, spirit never dies. We know that he said, it returns back to God. If that's the case, then spirit doesn't die. So I don't know where we're confused or we want to argue that point. Also, like I said, the Buddhists honor their ancestors. The Catholics honor their ancestors when they have you honoring St. Peter and St. Paul and St. Rita and St. Anne and St. Thomas and St. Mark, But why is it that when we honor our ancestors, even from within our own community, we don't understand the value in that? So you just need to understand the value in that.
Okay. And, some of that we kind of do. I mean, we don't call it a shrine, but, folks got pictures of their grandmama and their grandfather and aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff. And, our older generations, they have scrapbooks of photographs. Like my mother, She literally has thousands of photographs that my sister appropriates from time to time. So, we do it without even realizing that we're doing it.
Yeah, we do.
Great conversation. Talking with Kai Love. This is Vince Robinson. You're listening to Open Door Cleveland, and we'll be right back.
This is Aja Jones.
Tracy Clark, Kiko, Yolanda Armstrong,
Brian Webster.
This is TC Lewis, and you are listening to WOVU 95.9 FM.
Okay, we're back on Open Door Cleveland with Vince Robinson. We are rounding third and heading home, and what I'd like to do now is talk about this magnificent conversation that you have in print. It's called I Am Wealth, the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. So now is your opportunity to let us know what you want us to know without them buying the book. Because we want them to buy it, but we don't want them to give everything away right now. But we do want you to drop some pearls that can, first of all, motivate them to buy the book, but second of all, give them some insight in terms of your thought process and what the central message is.
Well, thank you. Good question. Well, the central message is to remove success blockers. And the way that I wrote it was a way in which to allow you to see that you have them without persecuting or judging, is to be able to process, oh my, there's some things that have happened in my life or that I have learned, be it through family or behaviors or society, about what I think it is to be wealthy and whether or not I deserve to be wealthy. And so it's called the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation, which I thought was brilliant when Spirit gave me that, because you must first internally manifesto something, meaning there has to be a decree and a declaration internally about what it is moving forward that you mean about you, and how your own personal internal leadership process, what that looks like to you on a daily basis. And so for me, people are always talking about manifesting through prayer, manifesting through meditation. You ain't gonna manifest nothing if you got all these blockages, because that's one of the main reasons why we can have a momentary blessing or opportunity or good thing, and then it goes away. And it's going away because there is nothing vibrationally that is evident and consistent in our behavior, our thought process, or our spirit that allows us to continue to bloom and grow and maintain that energy long enough to not only see it once, but to duplicate it many times. And so in our experience as brown people, we've always been told, well, we can't do what we can't have. Even if we were brought up in a confident home like I was, that you can do anything, I still was bogged down and with what I saw outside of my home. I still had to deal with what I was learning in my educational system. I still had to deal with what I was learning in religion that wasn't good and that wasn't profitable for growth and true advancement on every level. I still had to overcome all of those things, right? So the things that we don't think are affecting us really are affecting our success and our ability to sustain it. For me, when it says that the internal manifesto to manifestation, that's really what that means. Fixing yourself on the inside and looking at it in a loving and holistic way. And so when I say chaptersations, it's because I wanted to write a book that seems like it's a heavy topic. And I didn't want volume 1, volume 2. I wanted something simple that people could read and understand very easily and carry like a Bible and just look at it whenever they needed to get some inspiration. And so I put a couple of my own personal sayings in there and, just things that you can live by. And then I put a process. The process is simple. It's in the beginning and it's in the end, so that you could see it, get into your subconscious, and then you could use it at the end in a different way once you've gotten through the book.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, having read a portion of it, it reads like a conversation. I clearly hear your voice, because I've known you for so long. It's like, okay. And I call you Michaela. So
that's right.
Michaela talking to folk, I hear it resonating through the words that are coming off the page.
You hear the words that's coming from my mouth.
I hear the words coming from your mouth, coming from the page. So if you read the book, it's like someone is talking to you. It doesn't read like a textbook. It doesn't necessarily read like a how-to. It reads more like how can one be inspired to do something. And I think one thing that you talk about is changing the way that you think, you know, which is something that really resonates with me right now, because I see the profound need to change our narrative. I wrote a poem a few weeks ago, and it's called Message to a Murderer, I Can Breathe.
Yes.
And I was very intentional about saying I can breathe, because when we say I can't, you're affirming that reality. You're actually creating that reality for yourself, because you are using those words.
Yes.
So when you use the words, I am wealth,
yes,
and you exemplify
Ashe.
wealth,
Amen.
it becomes who you are.
Amen.
And I heard you
yes,
when you said what you speak of, you become.
yes.
So talk about the intentionality and the importance of our thoughts and our reality being connected to our thoughts.
Well, you've just said a mouthful. I actually, Vince, I do workshops. That was how I started many years ago, working for myself. I did corporate workshops and social service industry workshops and youth workshops. My passion, our children, period, point blank, dot, our children, and I'm unapologetic about that. I just simply love them, and I believe that if I had an agreement with the Most High, Father, Mother, Divine, and they said, why are you coming to earth? I'm like, children, black children in particular. But honestly, it just is my passion. And so when I think about intentionality and the way that I wrote the book, I just wanted children and people, in particular adult people, to realize the importance of what they have been thinking and intending. And when those things are not in alignment, it is actually what they are creating. To be mindful of that every day and to live consciously. One of my favorite teachers used to be, I don't listen to a lot of his stuff now, but I used to love Satguru, and I love Krishnamurti too, but and I remember reading something, listening to something that he had on YouTube about living consciously. And I did that, and I do it every day. And it's just a life-changing thing, because when you live consciously every day, that means you are active and actively aware and actively engaged in your life process. And so things will go exactly as you want them to go. I see it happen all the time. It doesn't matter what people say about you. You go through what you need to get to where you need to be. And most people are talking about you. You know why? Because they're not confident in themselves. And that means you're doing something amazing, even to just for them to be having the conversation. And it's very difficult sometimes being a brown woman of intellect and spirit, because a lot of times people are always looking at, what is your motive? I'm telling you what my motive is. It's exactly what I'm saying. But because I look like I look, or whatever that may be to some people, then you're thinking I'm not well intended, because someone that looks like this or acts like this or can sing like this or has this type of whatever would be manipulative, or would be trying to just have an intention that was selfishly motivated, and that is not me. So what we have to do as a people, when you check your stuff and you get your stuff in order, then you're not as worried about somebody else's. And when you are clear and well-intended and moving in alignment, mind, body, and spirit, thoughts, speaking, and deeds, then you will be clear when you look at someone else exactly who they are. And you won't try to name them a thing. You will just allow that thing to be whatever it is. So it is very important that we are intentional, because that allows us to not only reshape our own, framework for who we are and who we desire to be, but it allows us to see people in a loving way, in a living way, in a breathing way, in a way that allows people to change and shift and grow. And if you do that for yourself, it's very easy to do it for another person. And then the realities that you think you know about someone will fade away, because that was a story, and it may not have been a true story. You just chose to believe it. And then you'll be able to see what actually is there. Being an entertainer and being an attractive woman, whatever you want to call it, you get a lot of stuff, and women know what I'm talking about. I'm sure men know as well, but it's just this thing where stuff is just put on you that has nothing to do with the truth of who you are or what you came to do. So the reason I'm saying it that way is because oftentimes people, and I get this, people are very consumed with what other people think. And you become this instrument of praise to religion that is not accurate or effective. And religion is anything that you do ritualistically and yet you repeat on a daily basis. Well, ritualistically and religiously, people repeat negative things about themselves and others. And so when we begin to reshape that and we understand that, and which is what the book is really talking about, every day. I mean, I even go so far and I think about how I wake, and I tell people I never wake to an alarm clock. I've never ever awakened to an alarm clock since I was a little girl going to school. I don't even know that my mom, she used to wake us up, but there were times when I had an alarm clock, I remember. And it was like, you don't want to wake up that way because it shakes and it rushes you through your day. And if you start that way, you're never going to be able to finish the right way because you started the wrong way. And the wrong way is anything that moves you out of your natural state of being and allows you just to rise in completeness with the wholeness of life, with the energy of the morning, with whatever spirit and whatever vibration is moving, willingly, joyfully, lovingly, and peacefully. Because I believe that's how God moves, and that's how we know that things are divine and in alignment when they move that way for us. When it's just easy, and easy is good, believe me.
Well, it's interesting that you would talk about not being consumed about what other people think, because a lot of times what people express about you and on a negative basis is really the manifestation of something that they see within themselves.
Ashe.
So, you can be paralyzed with your concern about what people think. It's like you might wake up one day and your hair ain't right, and you ain't going to go out the house because you scared about what somebody would say about your hair, but you had something that was important to have been done that day. Mm-hmm. And you can't let someone else's thoughts about you deter you from what your purpose and what your mission are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. I remember this man was looking at me one time. I thought he was flirting, and he just kept staring at me. This was maybe 15 years ago or so. I was here in Cleveland at some event. And I was sitting there, and he looked at me, and he asked me my name, and I told him, and then he said, and he kept looking at me, and he's like, he said, "You're beautiful." I said, "Thank you." And mind you, I'm listening to what's going on. I'm thinking to myself, and he was a little older than me, so I was getting a little bit annoyed. Like, I don't like old men. You need to keep on walking. But I didn't say anything. I kept my legs crossed, and my mom raised me to be a lady, so I just kept looking away. He said, "It's something about you." I said, "Okay." And I just nodded my head, kept looking at he said, "You're free. You're free." That was the first time that I ever thought in my life somebody truly sees me. And it was the most beautiful thing to hear him say that, because it actually freed me. And one of the things that it freed me from was caring what anybody ever had to say. Because I know, like every other human, that people will say things about you, put things on you, and have nothing to do with the truth. And the only people that entertain that are people who want to, because of the lack in them, because of the hurt, anger, fear, or low self-esteem or insecurities in them. It has nothing to do with the truth of who you are. And anybody that's ever truly been successful or wealthy did not give a flying you-know-what about somebody else who wasn't. Mm-hmm. So you simply can't allow two-dimensional and three-dimensional people tell you what to do, and you're operating in the fifth dimension, or even concern yourself with that.
Okay. We got just a couple minutes left.
Aww.
And we mentioned activist when we were heaping those labels on you at the beginning of the show. So
yes.
We've talked about you as an author and a lecturer, performer. Let's talk about your activism. I know that's a new chapter that you're moving into.
Brand new chapter. And I just started something called My Activism Looks Like. And, first I want to say this. I do have a sister companion to the book, I Am Wealth. It's called Wealth Creation Through Meditation. And I just finished it. It's going to be an online course. And I have to share that. It isn't a shameless plug. It actually goes with the book, and it's really powerful to get that piece as well. The book is on Amazon. We can talk about that later. But the course, we haven't put it up yet. But I do want to put it out there because I'm very excited about it. And I'm not proud about much, but I'm proud about that because I think it'll help a lot of people. But My Activism Looks Like is another project that I'm working on. You can look for that on YouTube. But it really did. It was born out of this very terrible, heinous murder and crime that we all witnessed. Most of you witnessed it. I can't say that I witnessed it because I'm an empath, and so there are things that I can't watch and I will not watch.
I haven't watched it either.
Yeah. But it was enough vibrationally for me to know this is a horrific thing. And what's interesting is one day I was in at my boutique and I was looking at something and I didn't know what I was looking at. And it was something on television, and it was that murderer's cop on on this man's neck. But I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah.
But I said, oh my God, look at the expression of his face. He looks evil, like he's doing something he shouldn't be doing. I didn't know that I was witnessing him kill this man. But when I found out that that's what happened, later after a couple of weeks and it settled in my spirit, one of the things I knew I was supposed to go into someday was politics. I hate politics. I'm not into it at all. And I realized that, it was activism. Spirit is speaking about activism on behalf of my people. So I just know that that's where I'm moving to this next phase of my life.
Okay. Well, we will be staying tuned to witness the trajectory and the great work that you're doing. Real quickly, how can they get your book?
Right now, they can get it on Amazon.com. Just enter I Am Wealth and Kai Love, Kailove. Put it together because there's some other books that say I Am Wealth. But if you put I Am Wealth, Kai Love in your search engine, it should bring it up. It's a blue and white book, and it's the Internal Manifesto to Manifestation. And I thank you so much.
Okay, Kai Love.
Yes.
And you can find that on Amazon.com. Thanks for joining us on Open Door Cleveland. I'm Vince Robinson. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make it a great day. Peace.